Welcome to the We Watch This Movie podcast, where we sit down and dissect the latest and greatest in film. Today's episode 45, we are reviewing Wonder Woman 1984, the sequel to the acclaimed hit by Patty Jenkins. I am joined today, as always, by Jackson Marshall. Marshall on Film, how are you today, mate?
Life's good, Dan, but it could be better.
Yeah, it was expected, that one. Very well set up by me again. Why don't we dive straight into it, Jackson? Let's not beat around the bush because, listen, this is a polarizing film. We put out on our Instagram, what did you guys think? And we got back a lot of different responses, from 8 out of 10 to 4 to 2 to 6. It just depends where you're sitting on that fence. Jackson's usually got his bum right in the middle of that fence. On certain films like this, that's not a good analogy, is it?
It's not a good analogy at all, because I'm not usually on the fence when it comes to these kind of films.
Oh,
superhero movies, tentpole movies. I think you're on the fence, Dan Allen movies. It's already getting hot and heated. Without further ado, let's get stuck in to Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh, shit. You know what? I like the movie. Shoot me, Jackson. Shoot me.
You might like the movie, Dan, but don't you wish it was just a little bit better?
Woo! Oh, do I wish it was better? Yeah, I wish Tenet was 6 hours long, but beggars can't be choosers, hey?
You're still going on about Mr. CN and about a film that has now been released months and months and months ago. It's nearly February in 2021, and we still can't shut up about TENET, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Faithful listeners, viewers, hello to everyone out there on YouTube. We will be talking about Tenet in a future recording, maybe even next week. Stick around to the end to find out a little bit more. What is Wonder Woman 1984 about? Diana Prince lives quietly among mortals in the vibrant, sleek 1980s, an era of excess driven by the pursuit of having it all. Though she's come into her full powers, she maintains a low profile by curating ancient artifacts and only performing heroic acts incognito. But soon, Diana will have to muster all of her strength, wisdom, and courage as she finds herself squaring off against Maxwell Lord and the Cheetah, a villainess who possesses superhuman strength and agility. Too bad that's not really what happens, because it's just 2.5 hours of not all that much interesting and, to be honest, fairly boring, especially in the first act. And then it's kind of over and we're left thinking, what's the point? And is this it for superhero sequels? Really, is this it? This kind of embodies all the bad we've come to expect. It's overstuffed, it's overcooked, it's overbloated, it's cliche. We've got two villains because we simply couldn't decide on one for whatever reason, and an elongated opening sequence. In fact, we have two opening sequences. Everything's doubled up, yet this is nowhere near the quality we had with Patty Jenkins' first outing in Wonder Woman. A surprise, a fantastic film for the DCEU, and not all that much happens here. Dan, you usually give us your thoughts at the top. The floor's yours. I could go on for quite some time.
This is only one of 3 movies that you and me have sat down together and watched in 2020. We watched Bloodshot. I think that was the first one we watched back in February, March.
We watched The Way Back.
Did we?
We watched The Way Back.
Together?
And we watched more than 3 movies.
Really?
Come
Okay.
on. I'll rattle off a few of them right now.
Okay.
We saw Possessor. We saw
God.
this.
My memory's terrible. 3.
We saw Freaky. We saw Fight Club. We shouldn't be talking about it, though. We saw Bloodshot. We saw The Way Back. And there's probably something else as well. That's 8. That's what, 7, 8
We
films?
were going to see Tenet as well. So we've seen 8. Okay. So 3 was a little bit off. I retract that statement.
Add that to the bingo card.
Hey, not that it was not memorable, Jackson. It's just my memory isn't always functioning well. Okay. Wonder Woman 1984, very campy, very different to the first one when you look at the amount of action. The first one had a lot of action and it was well choreographed and it worked in that setting. In this movie, the action felt more shoehorned in, for one, and for two, didn't always work for me. The CGI that was happening in some of these scenes when she was running and things like that didn't really hit with me on all cylinders, I have to be honest. The actual story, very convoluted, if that's the right word.
Very what?
Convoluted. I make my own words up.
Convoluted?
Convoluted. I always
you.
call it convoluted. I just make words up at this point. Very convoluted and very disjointed. A lot of plot holes. We can name about 50, couldn't we? Really?
Go for it. Give me 5.
I don't want to. I really don't.
Please, give us 5. This is what this podcast is about. Punch a hole in it.
I want to be happy about the film.
No,
I want to go
give
in
us a plot hole.
positively. There's enough people bashing on this film, Jackson, that I'm going to take the approach that I had a fun time. And it's really sad, we've got a really good female director here, Patty Jenkins, who put her heart and soul into this series. And it's, the first Wonder Woman was the best Wonder Woman we'd ever seen on the screen, in the theater, in my opinion. And although this had a lot of drawbacks, it worked for me in the end as an overall package. Yes, the pacing was off. We could have changed a few things here and there, but music was fantastic. The Pedro Pascal's character, he knocked it out of the park for me. I just found him so fun to watch, even though, and he had his own arc and things of that nature, but just the way he portrayed this character had a lot of life and energy, into this character, and it worked in this campy setting. And then Gal Gadot and Chris as Steve and Diana, their chemistry is always there. And even though I didn't like the way he came into this plot, it felt really weird. Like there was this
It felt like it was
guy.
jacked on. We had to shoehorn Chris Pine back into this movie.
Did we look at each other at that point like, what is going on? I remember at one point you turned to me and you're like, nothing's happened. I'm so bored. We're an hour and a half in.
You know what it was? That first action sequence when we get to Egypt is 1 hour and 21 minutes into the film. It's 81 minutes in. That's longer than the length of, pick any movie off the shelf. Well, I guess these days it's pick any movie on a streaming service, but back then it'd be pick any movie off the DVD or video VHS rental shelf.
And you're done.
It's probably going to be about 80 minutes. It took an hour and a half to get to that first sequence here. I was telling you in the first act in this movie, sitting there in the cinema, this is so boring. Nothing has happened. And we had 2 opening sequences. We had whatever was going on in Themyscira, and then we had that mall heist. The mall heist was fun. It was campy. Why couldn't we just pick one? Warner Brothers even put it to Patty Jenkins saying, we've got to cut one of these. It's too long. And she told them no. I'm sorry, but for once, the studio was right. You should have gone with the studio, Patty. What were you thinking?
Yeah, well, she didn't go with the studio on the first one, and that was to the detriment of that film, so it's tough. But sometimes, the studio knows what they're doing, and I agree with you in an aspect, but I would have preferred to keep the first scene. I thought that first scene, really great music again by Hans Zimmer. I can't say enough good things. I'll rattle on about this guy for years. He doesn't make a bad score, but that second opening scene in the mall was sort of, nothing really happened. It was just to sort of reintroduce us to this character. Did we need to be reintroduced? Probably not.
No,
she's already been
not.
in like 4 films.
At least it was fun. It felt like it was something out of a Richard Donner Superman film from way back when in the late 70s and the early 70s. Like, it was corny. We had that young girl being rescued and then whipped away by the lasso into the bears. I mean, no one really ever dies in these films. It's practically, we're edging on a G rating here. But that's okay. Stick with that tone. Keep that consistent. Keep it fun. Keep it a little bit mocking, which the movie doesn't do. There's just too many ideas, too much going on. You said you like Pedro Pascal, as did I. I mean, with his character Maxwell Lord, obvious comparisons. I mean, it hits you with the subtlety of a hammer to the face. Can be drawn between him and something like Donald Trump, or to a lesser extent, a Gordon Gekko type like Michael Douglas in Wall Street, since he is, after all, just an 80s yuppie out there making deals. But if we're going to introduce him, why can't he just be the main villain? Or if we really need to have Kristen Wiig in this film playing Cheetah, why can't we just stick to her? Unfortunately, the movie just ends up doing a disservice to both of them. You spend almost 2 hours building up Kristen Wiig as Barbara and then becomes Cheetah, only for her to then get relegated for the last 15 to 20 minutes as a heavy for Maxwell Lord. What was the point of that?
It is.
And
It's a heavy. It's a body.
She ends up just being like a jealous friend stereotype. Like, how's this for a movie and a series that's meant to be about empowering women? Wonder Woman, Diana Prince, is still hung up on the same guy almost 70 years after he sacrificed himself. And poor Kristen Wiig is just a jealous friend who again ends up hung off another guy. Well, did Patty Jenkins, who co-wrote the script, not realize what she was putting down on paper?
But those women both have the power over those two men. Don't they?
What? No, they don't.
You don't think so?
Not at all. Is it not Steve Trevor who decides he has to go and give handsome man,
she wants him to stay, doesn't he?
Handsome man back his body? Like, he's like, no, you need your powers back. I have to go. Why did you come back in the first place? Who knows? And poor Kristen Wiig has to get beaten to a pulp. And they literally have a cat fight. It's a cat fight. It is literally like... we saw this movie nearly a month ago. In fact, it has been about 4 weeks since we saw this film. And it's only now dawning on
been a while,
just how preposterous this is. And it's actually offensive.
We're doing our best. I think we're a bit late to the party, aren't we? I don't think anyone else is reviewing Wonder Woman 1984 in January. But,
well, they are Dan Allen movies. I remember this had come out, and in that first week, that break between Christmas and New Year, I guess everyone was just so hung up in that holiday spirit, particularly after 2020, the year that was, that there were plenty of positive reviews coming out. Now that it's a month on, we're seeing the negativity really hit. There's been a lot of fan backlash and a lot of disappointment. Even those such as ourselves who are going to give this maybe okay or decent reviews, our final scores we'll get into later, we're still just kind of left empty. And it's really disappointing because after the first film was such a hit, this should have been so much better. Wonder Woman 84 was good, but it could have been a lot better.
The boss fight, yeah, that was a letdown. Big letdown. And it felt like, to me, that she didn't actually need that golden suit in the end.
No kidding!
Did you notice that?
Why did we introduce that? Couldn't she have used that when she didn't have her powers?
Do you think they rewrote something there?
Oh, 110% Dan Allen movies. I believe at that point, she was not meant to have her powers. So Wonder Woman, Diana Prince, I mean, come on, if you listened to this review, you must have seen the film. She loses her powers for what, like 40, 45 minutes? Should she not then put on the suit to fight someone else who's superpowered?
Yeah, because it was almost point. Besides, it looked cool, and it was from the comics. Like, was there anything else? You know,
we need to sell some toys.
And to be honest, she didn't look all that great in that suit. You could tell it was a very stiff suit, and she didn't have her flexibility. It came across a bit wonky as well. I really didn't like that final boss. Although I liked Kristen Wiig up until probably the presidential area. Up until then, I liked everything she was in. And then after that, it just went downhill, didn't it?
Did we not learn about CGI cats from Tom Hooper in 2019?
Well, it wasn't that bad.
Oh, it was pretty. It was pretty rough. It was some serious flashbacks, especially for myself, who went through Dan's Inferno. It just really doesn't land.
And the fireworks scene. I remember turning to you and saying,
"Oh goodness,
what did I say?" I think I said, "Jackson, we're about to see some fireworks here, mate." 2 minutes later, fireworks are coming.
Fireworks.
He just looks at me like, for F's sake. It's one of those things where they just reveal all the big moments in a trailer, so you can if you've seen the trailer once or twice, you know what's ahead. You know exactly, and probably in what order, which is a real shame.
It is a shame. And reshoots had taken place for this film back in July 2019. So filming had been wrapped for almost 6 months since this movie, but before this movie was released. And you couldn't tell me that they couldn't find other cool stuff. They really just wedged anything decent, anything pretty in that trailer. Dan, my points come back to me now. Thank God. Which suit was stiffer to wear? Gal Gadot wearing this big gold outfit in Wonder Woman 1984, or Michael Keaton in 1989's Batman?
I think Michael Keaton's got a. I think Michael Keaton's got her beat there. Hey, I went to watch that the other day, and I got 30 minutes in, and something came up, but I will finish it. I will finish that movie. I'm going back watching all the.
Acting like you've never seen it.
I have seen it, but I want to go back and watch them all with some fresh eyes. So they have greenlit a third movie, from what I've read, Jackson, for this series, which was inevitable. But I do know that the box office was very soft, didn't take on Tenet at all, and this is a superhero movie, right? This is a superhero movie in a time where you would have thought COVID's a little bit better than what it was when Tenet came out, and yet it's still. So it just goes to show Tenet really did well to get to near 400. So,
but then I'm gonna cut you off here, Dan. Keep in mind, you didn't have to go to the cinemas, particularly in the US, to go watch Wonder Woman. Where else can you be watching this movie?
You could go to HBO Max, and we don't know the numbers. We do not know the numbers on HBO Max.
We do.
We do?
We have some numbers now.
Oh wow!
We don't have any concrete evidence. So Warner Brothers, Warner Media have been secret, very similar to Netflix. Maybe we'll find out in the future. It's been reported that within 24 hours of this releasing on Christmas Day, 2020, only about a month since before we're recording this episode, that 23% of subscribers on that platform, HBO Max, joined up just to watch Wonder Woman 1984. Screen Engine, who are a streaming-based journalism site, reported that Wonder Woman 1984 was the most watched straight-to-streaming title of 2020, and it edged out both offerings from Disney+, that being Hamilton and Soul. Both of those were quite popular. Wonder Woman 1984 beat both. And supposedly to keep their deal with exhibitors, Warner Brothers said, we'll take much lower rental revenue from Wonder Woman 1984 compared to what we usually would for a superhero movie. And supposedly, Dan, get this, $500 million is needed at the global box office for this movie's break-even point. How likely is it that it's going to reach that goal? What do you think?
That's after the streaming stuff. Because how many subscribers, like how much revenue, we don't... This is the thing with all these streaming services. We don't know the numbers. I reckon they should be made to put them public, but how can that happen?
Consider there's supposedly maybe 25 million HBO Max subscribers by the year's end. Compare that to Disney Plus, who
watched it, did you say, or more?
25 million. Compare that to Disney Plus, who are doing 87 million. And then, of course, the gargantuan numbers for a service like Netflix.
Well, which one are you more keen for? Because HBO Max did that trailer a month ago or so showing off all their movies. I think they've got Godzilla Kong, they've got Justice League, June.
Mortal Kombat.
I think June was on there.
Yes.
So a bunch of really good films. The Little Things, which I'm really keen for, which I didn't even know was coming out until last week.
Oh, you must be that keen for it then.
Well, it just came out of nowhere, and I can't wait. Jared Leto, Denzel, Rami Malek, psychological thrill. It's got my name written all over it. But you got Netflix. They fired off a trailer recently as well, I think, to counter that HBO Max one. And they said they've got a new film coming out every week. That's pretty impressive. And then they showed off, J-Law, The Rock, Leonardo. They got the big actors. So they really, they're just pretty much saying, look, we've got everyone. Good luck.
We are the home for movies in 2021.
Yeah. But I actually like the selection of HBO Max better than the Netflix, what I saw. And Netflix don't have a great record. all the movies that we've reviewed for Netflix, they're usually 5, 6, 7 out of 10. It's really rare that we get a really good Netflix film.
To Netflix's credit, they are empowering some ambitious and creative filmmakers out there with full creative control. David Fincher doing Mank, which we covered in episode 44. Here we are at episode 45. So it just came out this week. If you haven't listened or watched it, please go do it on our YouTube. Think back to Charlie Kaufman doing I'm Thinking of Ending Things, far from your favorite movie of the year. But by God, we got another Charlie Kaufman film. Whoever thought that'd be possible? Even a movie that I didn't enjoy all that much, The Devil All the Time, that was still a result of a Netflix deal. So I say more power to them. But yeah, fair enough if you believe HBO Max have a good lineup. So they should, because their catalog is what was going to come out in cinemas. So
which one, if you had to pick one and the other one you don't get to watch, which one are you choosing? Simple as that.
Oh, it's easy. We have to go for HBO Max,
So
just
you
based
agree,
on
yeah.
the lineup. But I do give Netflix plenty of credit, even if I'm probably not going to watch most of those 52 films.
Hey, and if you throw Disney Plus in, they're at the bottom of my list for me, even with those Marvel films. Maybe Spider-Man comes on there. I don't know. I believe Black Widow's coming on. Was that confirmed?
WandaVision has just started off on Disney Plus, so there's plenty of premium TV series
too
content.
much for me.
And
Too much.
here's a silky smooth segue. You'll be a fan, Dan. We do have the leading man from The Mandalorian here for Wonder Woman 1984. And what do you do when you have an underplayed, almost exclusively voice actor from one of the most popular TV series, a part of one of the biggest franchises in pop culture anywhere? What do you do with him in your film? You have him overact in every single scene.
as an FU?
Absolutely. Just throwing up big middle fingers.
How did you like the secret cutscene? The what do you call it? The post credits scene of Wonder Woman. I got a bit of a pop for that. That got me up.
That got you up? I believe your words verbatim were that was the worst post credit cutscene I've ever seen. But
I did not say that.
If there
I did not
are
say
audience
that.
members out there in their 40s, 50s, 60s who seeing Linda Carter on screen as Wonder Woman as Diana Prince is going to resonate for them, more power to you.
Funny?
I didn't care for the movie to begin with, and that wasn't going to sway me either way.
You know what's funny? Most of the people watching this, a lot of like younger people like us and younger, so 25, 26, 27 and younger, even 14-year-olds, a lot of 14, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, they love superhero, right? They wouldn't have a clue who that is. That would just fly over their head, that whole thing. But I give them credit for it. I liked it. So
I'll give them credit for it
I do not
too.
think it was the worst I've ever seen, that's for sure.
Well, it's another case of the DCEU not even knowing who they're making movies for. Like, this film is the antithesis of the first Wonder Woman movie from 2017, which felt grounded, focused, earnest, and like this is just another mess. Like what connects the DCEU movies? Tonally, they're all over the shop, and even though the Marvel movies, the MCU, all end up feeling very much the same. Dan, what's the connecting thread? Where does this fit in?
They don't fit in at all. That's the problem. You know what? I am very disappointed with DC over the last 10 years or however long it's been. You know,
basically since they started making movies.
It's just, and you know me, I'm a massive, massive DC fan. How many times have I said it? And I was actually happy that Ben Affleck didn't get that Batman movie, and now we've got Rob Pattinson. My hope's up. So in the future, I'm very hopeful. We've got the Rob Pattinson Batman, Matt Reeves, and we've got Suicide Squad by our man, James Gunn. 2 films that should be hits. From what we've seen and their track records, they should be at least good. So I'm very optimistic.
Absolutely. And plus, you did love Robert Pattinson in High Life, so that's got to be a big positive for you.
You know what? It's funny. I did the Letterboxd year in review, and I'm surprised Adam Sandler was my most watched actor when I've seen every Robert Pattinson film this year. I don't know how he didn't come number 1. He must have been second. But, you know, we won't name 2 of those films that he was in. So I'm optimistic, and even Wonder Woman 3, I'm optimistic for. I like Patty Jenkins, and I don't think this is a bad film. Like I said, I actually thought it came together. I actually felt something at the end when he hugged his son, even though the son came out of a random forest and it was completely stupid. he just came out of nowhere. He could have been anywhere, the son. He happened to be in this forest. I forgive the movie for all those things.
Yeah,
when
there's
they embraced,
so much to forgive the movie for.
honestly,
It's
so
preposterous,
cheesy.
the amount of stuff that you have to forgive. I'm
I
sorry,
know,
it's
I
too
know.
much.
I completely understand.
Why does Diana pull a rabbit out of the hat when she just all of a sudden has the power to make something invisible?
Guys,
Like, we had a whole 20-minute opening sequence where she takes a shortcut, okay? Why couldn't she have made something invisible and that was the shortcut? And then we've set up this power of invisibility to come back 2 hours later to turn a jet invisible. And all she does is turn it invisible. And then that's it. It doesn't even play into the rest of the movie. What were they thinking?
Yeah, that's a classic case of a movie trying to bring in a comic book origin sort of power in a way that's grounded or in a movie way, and it just that fell flat as well. There's a lot that fell flat, but when they embraced at the end, I had a warm fuzzy feeling, Jackson. Warm fuzzy feeling. And it was so cheesy, but it just made me smile. I don't know. What do you want me to say? It's a guilty pleasure movie.
Which warm fuzzy feeling was it? Because we had about 3 emotional payoffs.
I like the Beautiful Lie soundtrack on top of her giving that speech when there's like so many fans going off at these guys. Like, you can imagine the set, the amount of fans. Like, it was so windy, and it's just classic movie stuff.
It's far from classic movie stuff. I remember this movie had finished, and I turned to you and I said, "This is pretty much Spider-Man 3." And I keep seeing Spider-Man 3 popping up in more and more reviews, other podcasts, videos,
I
everything.
like Spider-Man
Everyone's talking
3.
about this. Well, it's not the worst movie, but it's another one that's just totally overcooked. We've got too many villains. It's unfocused. It's messy. And we have like the same villain glow up that's happened now in 4 movies. We have Topher Grace in Spider-Man 3, who goes from being a nerd to getting jealous and then becoming a villain. We have Jim Carrey in Batman Forever, who goes from being a nerd to becoming jealous and a villain. Jamie Foxx in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, who has the nerdiest, worst bit of makeup ever. That's a very big guilty pleasure of yours. And finally, the 4th time, Kristen Wiig is a nerd,
right now
becomes
that you
jealous.
mention it. Wow, that has been
this
cooked.
Is the worst cliche.
That has been cooking in the oven, and it is burnt. It's been well done, hasn't it? Oh no!
I can't believe we are still doing this in superhero movies. And I get it; it's a comic book trope.
It's not even a superhero movie thing.
Let it die. Yeah, it's a comic book trope.
No, but it's in other movies as well. Non-comic book. Like, how many movies, like teen dramas or those sort of films where there's a nerd? It's so overdone, but it gets the crowd going, doesn't it? I did like the scene where she ended up flying. That was a good scene that I thought that paid off.
Yeah, and another emotional payoff.
But
about 45 minutes before the movie ended.
All right, Jackson, I want to hear this final rating. You've been, it can't be lower than an 8, surely.
Oh, absolutely not. I've just been. I
think you're coming in at a 9. Am I wrong?
So much
Am I reading it the room
here.
right?
I'm just exaggerating. I love this film so much. Oh, I think it's easily got to be a 10. It has to be that masterpiece rating. Maybe the first ever 10 that we agree on.
You've
45
only
episodes.
given 110, yeah? Mulholland Drive?
In our main episodes, other
done
than
one
some
in a
recommendations.
side?
What was that? Sorry.
What did you give a 10 in the side ep?
Or maybe not in the minisodes. In the recommendations, I might have spoken about Evil Dead 2 and given that a 10.
Oh, yeah.
I've had other thoughts about, what kind of dictates a 10. And often it's a movie, something that you can watch again and it's got even more rewatchability. But look, it's definitely
Do you
not
want a
gonna be one of
spoiler?
them in
I think
1984.
we both agree Terminator 2's a 10. Am I wrong?
Yeah, 100%. We can settle on that.
We can settle on that. There we go. And probably one of the Lord of the Rings.
You might as well just go all 3.
All 3, yeah.
We should probably watch them back to back. Just a spare day, because you're definitely not a busy man. No way.
Yeah, and we'll watch the extended cuts with the special features in 4K. We'll be a dinosaur before it ends. We might as well watch Hobbit at that stage, all three of them, and then we'll head on to the show. It'll be time to watch the Amazon show by that point when we're done.
We'll be as old as Steve Trevor.
All right. Oh man, that was so weird how they introduced him. Anyway, what is your rating? Come on.
Before I give the final rating, let it just be put out
the
there.
Anticipation.
Ghost rape. Handsome man has his body inhabited by the spirit, or at least made to look like Steve Trevor. And Diana Prince is just more than happy to have sex with this man, and they're more than happy to put this guy's body in danger without a second's thought. We can end the discussion right there. I'm just going to pop it out there for everybody.
Who said they had sex?
It's not even that it's heavily implied. It's that we wake up the next morning with both of them in bed.
They could have just gone to sleep. Come on.
Like, is this like a Being John Malkovich situation where this guy is watching his body have sex with Diana Prince? And I mean, look, I don't blame him if he's okay with that, but it's a little sketchy.
Even what did you think of the last line where Steve's gone and the guy comes back, and that it was just so cheesy. I loved it.
What about the ADR when Steve slips behind that wall and it's like Chris Pine has left the shoot for the time being, and then we have a stagehand or someone deliver his last lines. It was not Chris Pine. It was not Chris Pine.
Because that goes back to the rewrites. I reckon that wasn't supposed to be his last scene. There's a lot jumbled here. That
they had since July to fix it up, and they couldn't get it done in a $200 million tentpole movie. Let's hope this is it for tentpole superhero films, and it might be the nail in the coffin. Okay, enough beating around the bush. We don't do that here on the podcast. There's no such thing as a tangent. Dan Allen movies. After all this hoo-ha, Wonder Woman 1984 is going to get 6 out of 10 knockoff MCU MacGuffins. It should have been so much better. It's very disappointing, and I actually feel dirty still giving this a 6. But there were a lot of good moments that I liked. I still like Gal Gadot as this character, even if she has nothing to do in this entire film. I still enjoy Pedro Pascal. Kristen Wiig, who might be in another film, has a red hot crack. If I keep going, I'm going to lose points. Please, what's your rating?
6 is pretty good. I'll take that. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Good for me. Guilty pleasure, 100%. Objectively, yeah, it's sitting around a 5 or 6. But for me, the music brought it up. The performances,
of course, the music is your number one.
The music brought it up.
100%.
If you've got someone else in that score, I'm joining you at a 6, 100%. I will admit that to the day I die. Every time you got that man in, it's up a point, no matter what. And yeah, performances brought it up. A bit of emotion here and there as well. You don't get that a lot in some of these superhero films, and I thought they brought some emotion into it. So, and the action wasn't that great, but you know, the open road scene, it was good enough. I don't know. There's a lot to like in the overall package. It was pretty funny in some parts as well. Kristen Wiig, so there's a lot of positives, a lot of negatives, but 7 out of 10. For me, Jackson, Wonder Woman. Now, this is episode 45, 46. We haven't actually discussed what we're doing, Jackson. What have you got in mind for episode 46?
Live on air, Dan Allen Movies. The listeners, the viewers of the We Watch This Movie podcast. Episode number 46. It's time. We broke down our best of 2020. And you best believe we're going to be breaking down our worst of 2020 as well. We saw a lot of movies throughout the last 12 months, and many of them that we haven't covered here at the podcast that we will talking about in short form, maybe some longer than others. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to our rabid fans, all 10 of you out there. Let's do it.
11. My mum. Hi, mum. That joke didn't land, did it? So top 10 next week, and then the week after, top 10 worst?
Who said anything about a top 10? I said we're going to do the best, and we're going to do the worst.
You're just going to come out, it might be 12, it might be 7. All right. I'll go 10. You can come in whatever number you want. And then next week, we'll come back to top 10 worst. And we also got the little things. We have to check that out, Denzel. and Rami and Jared Leto. I think that could be a good one. I'm hoping anyway.
You
All
sure
right.
know how to pick him. You picked a winner here with Wonder Woman 1984.
Where can the listeners find us, Jackson?
Viewers, if you've enjoyed us here at the We Watch This Movie podcast, we'd love for you to check us out and hit subscribe on YouTube. If you're already here, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, let us know your thoughts about Wonder Woman 1984. We'd love to read them. We'd love to reply to them. Please check us out, hit subscribe, hit the bell. We would very much appreciate it. Head on over to our Instagram, give us a follow, like us on Facebook, tweet us on Twitter, maybe even follow us on TikTok. We've got exclusive content and definitely not duplicated across our many social media channels at We Watch This Podcast. He is at Dan Allen Movies. I am at Marshall on Film. Dan Allen Movies, what do you wish for?
I wish for the episode to end. Take care, everybody.
I wish for a world without superhero sequels. That would be better.